Did you hear about the new punchline diplomacy? It's when the US and China try to settle their differences over a series of knock-knock jokes. Now, let's get serious. Or at least as serious as we can get when talking about a play date between the US Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen and Chinese officials. The agenda was as loaded as a 7-layer dip, with issues ranging from Beijing's economic practices to manufacturing overcapacity in China and financial stability. It's like trying to negotiate who gets to play with the coolest toys during a play date, except the toys are trade policies and economic practices. Imagine Yellen saying, "Knock, knock." China responds, "Who's there?" Yellen retorts, "Fair trade." China, a bit confused, queries, "Fair trade who?" And Yellen, with a smirk, delivers the punchline, "Fair trade, you know, that thing where you don't flood our market with cheap products?" It's a bit like trying to convince a toddler to share their toys, but with a lot more at stake. It's all fun and games until someone's economy gets hurt, right? So the punchline is, the world is big enough for both the US and China to thrive, as long as they remember to share their toys. Ever seen a tug-of-war match? Well, picture that, but with money instead of a rope, and you've got US-China economic relations. Now, this isn't your run-of-the-mill playground tug-of-war, oh no. This is a match where both sides are flexing their economic muscles, trying to gain the upper hand. On one side, we've got the United States, concerned about the fairness of Beijing's economic model. On the other side, we have China, who is not exactly thrilled about American trade restrictions. It's like watching a high-stakes game of tag, where both sides are doing their best to avoid being it. And by it, we mean the one slapped with the most trade restrictions. Adding another layer to this complex economic cake is China's role as a creditor to emerging markets. Now, if we imagine these emerging markets as the little kids on the playground, China is kind of like the older sibling lending them lunch money. But the US isn't quite comfortable with this setup, raising concerns about potential power imbalances. And just like in a game of tag, the goal is to avoid being it. But in this case, it means being the one with the most trade restrictions. What does a climate change debate between the US and China look like? A lot like two parents arguing over who left the lights on. Now, imagine this. On one side, we have the US, the ever-prudent parent, pointing fingers at China saying, "Hey, you're flooding the world with your cheap carbon-emitting products." China, on the other hand, like a rebellious teenager, rolls its eyes and retorts, "Well, you're not exactly a beacon of green yourself, are you?" This energy tiff isn't just about pointing fingers, though. It's about finding solutions, too. Both countries are looking at sovereign debt relief as a possible get-out-of-jail-free card for climate initiatives. Picture it like this. It's as if the US and China are both eyeing the same piece of pie, but instead of fighting over it, they're deciding who gets to pay for it. But let's not forget, this is not just about who pays the electricity bill or who left the lights on. It's about safeguarding our home, our planet. And if a little domestic squabble between these two heavyweights gets us there, well, that's a punchline we can all laugh at. So the next time you leave the lights on, just remember, you might just be sparking the next international climate debate.